In the heart of a secluded countryside stood an imposing mansion, its once grand facade now marred by the passage of time. The locals spoke of it in hushed tones, referring to it as the House of Shadows. For years, it had remained uninhabited, its darkened windows and overgrown gardens serving as a silent testament to its abandonment. Yet, despite its desolation, the house seemed to possess an uncanny allure, drawing the curious and the brave to its doorstep. Eleanor, a seasoned real estate agent known for her tenacity, had heard the whispers about the mansion. She prided herself on her ability to sell even the most challenging properties, and the House of Shadows presented the ultimate test. Determined to dispel the rumors and restore the mansion to its former glory, she decided to spend a night within its walls, hoping to uncover its secrets and lay the tales to rest. As dusk settled, Eleanor approached the mansion, her footsteps crunching on the gravel path leading to the grand entrance. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. She inserted an old, ornate key into the lock, and with a creak that echoed through the stillness, the door swung open. The interior was cloaked in darkness, save for the faint glow of the setting sun filtering through the grimy windows. Eleanor set down her bag and retrieved a flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom. Dust motes danced in the air, disturbed by her presence. The grand foyer, with its sweeping staircase and intricate woodwork, hinted at the elegance that once defined the mansion. She moved from room to room, noting the faded wallpaper, the cobweb-laden chandeliers, and the antique furniture draped in white sheets. As night deepened, the house seemed to come alive with sounds. The wooden floors groaned under her weight, and the walls seemed to whisper unintelligible secrets. Eleanor dismissed these as the natural noises of an old structure settling into the coolness of the evening. She made her way to the library, a vast room lined with towering bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes. A massive fireplace dominated one wall, its hearth cold and empty. Feeling a chill, Eleanor decided to light a fire. She found a stack of aged logs beside the fireplace and arranged them carefully. As she struck a match and ignited the kindling, the flames cast flickering shadows that danced across the room. She settled into a high-backed armchair, the warmth of the fire providing comfort against the encroaching cold. Hours passed as Eleanor perused the books, many of which were first editions and rare finds. She became so engrossed that she barely noticed the passage of time. It wasn't until the grandfather clock in the hallway struck midnight that she realized how late it had become. The chimes resonated through the house, each one amplifying the silence that followed. Suddenly, a faint sound reached her ears, a soft, almost imperceptible whisper. She looked up from her book, scanning the room with narrowed eyes. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, yet she couldn't discern the words. It seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Eleanor stood, her heart pounding, and approached the nearest bookshelf. As she reached out to touch the spines of the books, the whispering ceased abruptly. A sudden gust of wind swept through the room, extinguishing the fire and plunging the library into darkness. Eleanor's flashlight flickered and died, leaving her in pitch blackness. Panic surged within her as she fumbled for her phone, hoping to use its light. As she turned it on, the screen illuminated a figure standing in the doorway, a tall, shadowy silhouette watching her intently. "Who's there?" Eleanor demanded, her voice trembling. The figure remained silent and moving. Gathering her courage, she took a step forward, but as she did, the figure dissolved into the darkness, leaving no trace of its presence. The temperature in the room plummeted, and Eleanor could see her breath forming misty clouds in the air. Determined not to be intimidated, she decided to explore further. She exited the library and ascended the grand staircase, each step creaking ominously beneath her feet. The upper floor was a labyrinth of corridors and rooms, each more dilapidated than the last. As she ventured deeper into the mansion, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. In one of the bedrooms, she discovered a dusty, ornate mirror. As she wiped away the grime, her reflection stared back at her, but something was off. The reflection's eyes seemed to follow her every movement with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. She turned away, only to hear a soft tapping sound coming from the window. Approaching cautiously, she peered through the cracked glass. Outside, the garden was bathed in an eerie, ethereal light. Shadows flitted among the trees, moving with a purpose that suggested they were more than mere illusions. The tapping continued, rhythmic and deliberate. Eleanor realized it was coming from within the room. She turned to face the source of the sound and saw the closet door trembling, as if something inside was trying to get out. Summoning her resolve, she grasped the handle and yanked the door open. The tapping ceased, and the closet was empty, save for a single, moth-eaten coat hanging limply. A sense of unease settled over her. The house was playing tricks on her mind, exploiting her fears. She decided it was time to leave, to return in the daylight with a team to properly assess the property. As she made her way back downstairs, the whispering resumed, louder and more urgent. The walls seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy.
Reaching the foyer, she grasped the door handle, but it refused to turn. The door was locked, trapping her inside. Panic set in as she struggled with the lock, her breaths coming in rapid gasps. Behind her, the whispering grew to a cacophony, a chorus of voices speaking in a language she couldn't understand. Suddenly, the voices stopped, replaced by a low, guttural growl. Eleanor spun around to see the shadowy figure from before, now more defined and menacing. Its eyes glowed with an otherworldly light, and it advanced toward her with deliberate steps. Desperation fueled her actions as she grabbed a nearby candlestick and swung it at the apparition. The object passed through it harmlessly, and the figure continued its approach. Just as it reached out toward her, a blinding light filled the room, and a deafening roar shook the very foundations of the house. Eleanor screamed, and everything went black. She awoke to the sound of birds chirping and sunlight streaming through the broken windows. Disoriented, she sat up and looked around. The front door stood ajar, and the oppressive atmosphere from the night before had lifted. Gathering her belongings, she hurried outside, eager to distance herself from the accursed mansion. As she reached her car, she glanced back at the House of Shadows. It loomed silently, its secrets hidden once more. Eleanor vowed never to return, leaving the mansion to its solitude, a place where the past and the supernatural intertwined, forever shrouded in mystery.